What's supposed to be a short stay for treatment and recovery can turn into something longer when the very thing that keeps us independent and mobile starts slipping away because we're stuck in a hospital bed. For many frailer patients, it's not the illness that stops them getting home, it's the muscle loss that follows. Deconditioning sets in, confidence drains, beds become blocked, and some leave hospital frailer than when they arrived. This is the catch-22 that my guest today decided she had to do something about. Frustrated that some of her most vulnerable patients couldn't access the level of physical rehabilitation needed to get them out of hospital, physiotherapist Jen Turner decided to invent a solution herself. Multiple prototypes and trials later, the S-Press was launched, a leg strengthening device that patients can use in a bed or a wheelchair to help them get home sooner. This innovation took funding, and today I'm partnering with UKRI, the UK's largest public funder of research and innovation and sponsor of today's episode. UKRI invests over £8 billion annually to help make people's lives better. And you can find out how this funding helped Jen and others through the link included in the description below. In this inspiring interview, we'll discuss how quickly muscle loss can start affecting patients, the determination and perseverance it took for Jen to bring a solution to hospitals, and why her success is all the more remarkable because she's also living with Parkinson's disease. Well, it would be good to start by hearing a little bit about your work as a physiotherapist and what it involved, and then what it was that you started to observe among some of the hospital patients.
I've been qualified for 30 years now. 22 of those years I worked in the NHS, and my specialty was older people's rehabilitation. So years and years of treating older adults with anything that came through the door, basically. So they may have fallen and fractured a hip, or they may have had a stroke, or they may have had other chronic diseases like Parkinson's or MS or Guillain-Barré, and you got to know your patients really well. I love that generation because they've just so interesting and so just such amazing lives and so different, and you could just chat with them and you could just get to know them.
And you started really to see a concerning pattern among them when it came to, what was happening to them when they were kind of more bedbound. What was it that you observed?
So we would get the patients from the acute trust coming down to us at the community hospital if they hadn't recovered quickly enough. So when we're down, we're doing rehabilitation specifically to get the patients to be able to go home. But they're much more complex patients now. They've got multiple comorbidities. And the patients were so deconditioned when they came down to us, they were really struggling to even sort of stand up from a high bed. So they were taking a lot longer to get back to that baseline level of kind of the strength that they needed to be able to sit to stand, to be able to get home to sit to stand from a chair, from the bed. I was seeing this happening, and obviously we were also starting to lose potentially gym spaces as well, starting to lose the portering service for bringing patients down to the gym that we used to have. You've got just this whole situation where you've got leaving at the end of the day thinking some of these patients haven't done anything therapeutically beneficial at all today. And you just feel really kind of like you're failing in your kind of duty of care for these patients.
And you hear that dreadful phrase, really, bed blocking, as if it's the person's fault. But I think what that relates to is the idea that once people come into hospital and they're in a frail state, and exactly the scenario you described, that without moving, they can get frailer and frailer because they're losing muscle. And how big a problem did you think it was among those frail patients? I mean, was this just something you were seeing time and time again?
So when I had the idea for the S-Press, and this was all happening, this was 10 years ago. But the situation actually hasn't changed, and it's significantly kind of got worse actually in a lot of ways. So the up-to-date statistics of the fact that bed occupancy is running at between sort of 92 and 95%. 85% is what NHS England state is a safe level of bed occupancy. So this is why we're seeing the 12-hour waits in A&E and the corridor care and the ambulance outside, because we've got delayed discharges of probably 14,000 delays, I think, a day. 22% of those delays is caused by slow physical recovery. And I know that the number of hospital beds themselves has reduced from about 300,000 to about 145,000 in the last 30 years. So we've lost a huge amount of the actual hospital beds. And we've got problems with the functional decline. I think a third of patients have a functional decline when they come into hospital.
So you're starting to lose muscle within a couple of days of being bed restricted, which is what's happening for so many patients because you don't have the staff to get them up and walking and supporting them and to run activities for them that are going to allow them to maintain muscle. What's really interesting is that this whole scenario wasn't really on my radar at all. And then just as life goes, I came across your story and we were due to speak, and that was fantastic. And last week I was chairing a healthy aging conference, and there was a scientist from the University of Maastricht who was talking about this very thing. And he was coming at it from a nutritional and physical perspective. But he was saying, patients, this problem of muscle loss and deconditioning in hospital is a very big one. And he was talking about the amount of protein that patients are given in hospital and how that needs to be prioritized as well. So they have a diet that also supports muscle maintenance. And the two things are really not in place at the moment. And we're talking about the UK, but it sounds like with aging populations around the world, this is a problem everywhere or in most countries.
Strength training has been low on the agenda because of the lack of effective equipment that we've had. It's very difficult to do in a hospital setting. But the research now, and the research literally over the last 10 years, because I did a massive literature search at the beginning as well, just to make sure that I wasn't crazy and that this really was a problem that wasn't being addressed. And I hope that the S-Press will play its part in this overall kind of improvement of the healthcare system. It's been a massive collaboration with the design process. The real trigger moment for me, the light bulb moment, if you want, was with a patient called Shirley. She was a 75-year-old grandmother who was really active before she came into hospital, and she developed Guillain-Barré syndrome. So that is a condition where the peripheral nerves get attacked and you get numbness coming from the feet up, and it's very treatable if you catch it quickly. And but some people can end up with problems affecting their lungs and things. But if you get to it quickly enough, then it has 100% kind of recovery rate. It's not a problem from that point. But she also had arthritis of her knees and her hands. So things like holding TheraBand to be able to do exercises with the legs was impossible for her because she didn't have the grip to be able to hold it. And also she had the weakness of her leg, so she couldn't hold her leg up against gravity. So as physios, we do a lot of physical kind of assisting with our patients. And I was on the bed with her foot against my shoulder, and she was pushing against me, and I was being her resistance. And she said, well, this is great, because she could feel that her leg muscles were working because she was pushing against me. But she said, this must be really bad for you. There must be a better way of doing this. So at that point, I went off and had a look for other devices. I wanted a device that would fit on the bed, that a patient could be supported their limb, which was very weak, which is resistance kind of progression, which we know is obviously beneficial because of all the research that's been done. And I wanted a gym equivalent therapeutic level device that could go on a patient's bed, would be light enough for a physio to carry around, would be wipeable, would be tissue viability and infection control compliant. And also, I've treated quite a lot of patients with heel sores, and they were really limited in what they could do. So I designed the leg rest to have a gap in the back, the leg rest, so that even patients with heel sores could also use use the device and get that therapeutic level of resistance training going to help them maintain and not lose and not decondition. Within 10 days, you can lose between 12 and 20% of your muscle strength. For somebody who is elderly particularly, you can drop off the side of a cliff. I mean, maintaining that from the beginning, from early on, was always the point. I wanted the acute hospital to be doing more so that the patients, when they got to me at the community hospital, weren't in quite the state they were in, so that they could get better quicker and get home quicker. And we did a lot of work with Devices for Dignity in Sheffield. I think there are 15 across the country that help innovators with ideas. And I took concept designs to the Sheffield teaching hospitals. We had a focus group with the physios there. And they were like, no, I don't like that. I don't like that. No, I prefer that one. And that one looked better. And it was all kind of that side of things. And it's been brilliant. It's been so amazing to meet so many different clinicians from like hugely different clinical areas that I didn't really think at all would be helped by the Espress. So the renal unit, where patients are there for quite a long time and they're quite complex and they have dialysis 3 times a week and they're quite unwell, they can spend a lot of time on the bed. So, and they had a demo and found it really, really helpful. And I'm now going to give them one of the old prototypes to have back on the ward for a long-term kind of permanent loan so that they can keep using it because they found it so helpful. And yeah, it's kind of me giving back to them as well.
Because you can imagine, although you were working with very frail elderly people, with that rate of muscle loss, this is really quite essential for anybody with a longer hospital stay, but particularly those of us, say, over the age of 50 or whatever, where muscle loss is becoming more and more of a problem.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk me through the process involved in all of this, because you had this idea, and brilliant that you were able to link up with Devices for Dignity, and that there is such an organisation that can help people like you with a brilliant idea and that has the potential to have such an impact. But presumably you had to secure funding, there had to be some clinical trials and so on. I mean, what happened there?
So the whole innovation journey is really complex. It's sort of multi-layered, and you have to go through each kind of individual step at a time. So yes, you have to get your regulatory approvals, but to get that, you need funding. So to get the funding, you have to apply and you have to fill in these enormous application forms, which take hours and hours to fill in. So originally, at the very beginning, I won a competition, which was in my physiotherapy journal for physios who had ideas that could help patient groups. And I thought, I've had an idea, so I'll put that in. But I had no kind of prototypes or anything at that point. It was just a concept. And it was run by Arthritis Research UK and the Design Council in London. And it was to go on their pre-accelerator, which is a business kind of course. And so I applied and I went to the interviews and went on the pre-accelerator, and I won the award, which was just hilarious. And I was like, oh, excellent. Okay, well, this is good. And then I got a research grant from the Council of Allied Health Professionals Research Association, but also Innovate UK. I won the Women Innovation Award in 2022. And that is part of the UKRI, which is the UK Research and Innovation Network. But this is specifically for women. And it's really empowering for this this cohort of women, because it's a very male-dominated area, particularly health tech, actually, which is interesting. I don't feel overly uncomfortable in a room full of men, particularly, but I know that some women do. But it's really amazing to have this Women in Innovation Award available just for us.
What stage in the development did that award help with? So where did the money go for that?
That particularly paid for the post clinical trial changes in the design. So the prototype that was used for the 12-month real world evaluation, it was quite a lot longer. It had the leg rest was a lot bulkier. It was heavier. It went up to 29 kilos of resistance. So patients were pretty much only managing the first kind of 3 or 4 levels out of 7 levels. So what we've done is we've shortened the device. We've made the leg rest a lot more ergonomically comfortable. The padding is now completely removable really easily, so it's very wipeable. It's about 1.5 kilos lighter. The springs go from 3 kilos up to 21 kilos of resistance in 3 kilo steps up 7 levels. Just like at the gym, they can see that they are getting stronger because they can push another level of resistance, or they can do more repetitions because there's a counter and you can see how many reps you're managing to do. So the thing with the clinical trials is, although we saw an improvement in speed of sit to stand and the functional side of things, and also we did muscle ultrasound and we saw a growth in the muscle fibers, the huge impact on patients from our point was the psychological benefit. They had agency over their rehab. They could see that they were improving. They had a positive kind of feeling about what they could achieve. Then they had hope, basically. If you are in hospital, you're unwell, you've had an injury or an illness, you are at your worst psychological point and you feel like you're not achieving anything like what you need to be able to get home, to be able to see that your legs are physically getting stronger with an objective measure is a huge benefit to them.
I mean, I think you just hit the nail on the head there with hope, probably one of the most overlooked things in recovery.
Absolutely.
And I mean, just to describe it for people, I mean, what you're talking about is basically a patient who can remain in the bed, but use the S-Press basically as a sort of resistance device. And as you say, you can up the level of resistance in stages, but they can just lie there working their legs out as it's one foot at a time kind of thing that you would use.
1 foot at a time, because we needed to keep it light, portable. If you try and make it both feet, suddenly you've got like a big piece of equipment which takes away which kind of adds in barriers to physios being able to maneuver it around. So one leg at a time, and then it can be swapped over to the other side. Or you've got patients who just have one leg that needs to be kind of rehabilitated. So they would just use it on that side. When we used to have kind of relatives coming in at a visiting time and the patients were just lying on the bed, you could see the anxiety that the relatives were having, that they weren't doing anything. Their loved one in the bed, literally, as you say, was just kind of fading away and not doing anything, and they would be frustrated. Yeah. I devised the S-Press with the hope, and now we know that they can, is that over weekends, relatives can be trained to use the S-Press. So if you can get family members involved in the rehab, again, they feel useful. The patient's getting more therapy, and overall they'll get a shorter length of stay because they'll be able to get home quicker because they'll be fitter and they'll reach their baseline level, in theory, quicker. What
was the research that you were able to use to demonstrate its effectiveness?
We did the original pilot study in 2020, and then we did a 12-month real-world evaluation as well. So we had 4 sites at Northamptonshire Healthcare NHS Trust. They had 8 devices, and they used them for an entire 12-month period. Because with the S-Press, you can use it on the bed, but you can use it in a chair or a wheelchair as well. So that was another of the efficiency savings for the physios that I wanted, so that the patient didn't have to be transferred from the bed out to the chair or into a wheelchair. They could use it, if they were on the bed, they could use it on the bed.
Does it have to be rested up against something solid to stop it moving, or how does it stay grounded?
So it's got non-slip Dyson material on the bottom. So, and then you use another little Dyson kind of mat, and it kind of sticks like glue on the floor. When you're using it in a hospital bed, it butts up against the end of the hospital bed.
What's the hope here Jen, in terms of take up? Obviously, you'd like to see this everywhere. I mean, where are you, do you think, on that journey? And what is the level of recognition among hospitals, do you think, now of the need for this kind of equipment?
Over the last 2 years, I think, following the clinical trials finishing, and we knew that it was beneficial and we knew we had the research behind it, I have been driving all around the country doing demos and going to physio departments and hospitals. And we've had now, I think, 14 different trusts who have trialled and done short-term loans. They've all given feedback very similar to each other on a couple of little kind of niggly bits. So we've changed those as well. 5 of those trusts had put in orders, but now I was approached by a distributor called Medfac and Kinetec. They've got over 90 countries and territories that they distribute to. And I am now entering into an agreement with them for them to take over, because obviously it literally has been just me with lots and lots of help. But I haven't had like a team or a company kind of behind me up until this point.
I'm thinking, are you aware of similar devices being used like this elsewhere in the world? Or is this something that's pretty new to hospitals, do you think?
Well, I found one device in America that was really big, really heavy, looked a bit like it had been made in a shed. If I took a picture of its tissue viability and infection control, and they basically made me leave the room because they were like, no, that's not
coming here.
Community physios are using it at the minute in Northampton. They can take it out in their car to a patient to use at home. So if a patient is unable to do the gold standard, get up, get moving, get going, and they're in the bed and they're struggling to do that basic sit to stand, they're the people who need the S-Press, not the ones who are up and about and moving.
Recently, I did an episode with a physiotherapist. He's based in Canada, and it was about the simple exercises that everybody can do at home to start reversing frailty, and sit to stand is that chief exercise. So, once people are at that point, they can get out of their bed, they can practice getting up and down from a chair and vary the height and so on. There's so much more you can do, but like you say, when somebody is bedbound, they need something like this to get them going. I mean, I'm wondering for people who have family in hospital, they might be in hospital themselves and thinking, I think I'm losing muscle on a daily basis. What are some other things that they could be doing at the moment? I mean, I'm thinking even if you had a relative that was up for it, could you be pushing against their shoulders or trying to do some resistance work in the bed at the moment?
There was a guy that put a video up quite a while ago. He was a rugby player who had a spinal cord injury. I saw a video of him using the bed end, and he'd had his relative take the bed end off, and he was doing arm raises and chest press using literally the end of his bed. Okay. So it's kind of anything that you can use to help do that. Now with legs, it's a little bit different. It's a bit harder. So yeah, if you have got a relative in bed, if you can help them with their movement of their legs, if they're struggling, if they've got stiffness in their hips and knees, just holding the leg under the foot and under the knee, and then just helping them kind of bend and flex. And then, yes, they can start to push a little bit against you and get a little bit of resistance going in that respect. If they are able to sit over the edge of the bed, can they straighten their knee out? And then if they can do it against resistance, can you put your hand against their shin? And can they push against you? So you're adding in that little level of kind of stress into the muscle. So just marching on the spot, marching your leg in and out, stretching your leg, paddling your feet, get just the blood flowing, and also get the muscles just engaged, just even a little bit.
And it's awareness, isn't it, Jen? I mean, again, it had passed me by, and the minute I heard about what you were doing, I thought, of course. And then it was quite remarkable that just a couple of weeks later, I'm sitting in this conference listening to somebody talking about the very same thing. It must be your hope that healthcare chiefs and policymakers really start prioritising muscle loss in hospitals. Is that something you would like to see happen?
Absolutely. As people say, it's a no-brainer, but it's never a no-brainer when it comes to healthcare, because obviously there's so many other factors that that affect kind of devices or service change or anything happening in the NHS. If you've got this number of people who are slowly recovering and not recovering quickly enough, it's having such an impact on the flow of the entire system that surely by getting the patients out quicker, and if the S-Press helps even 2% of the patients get out of hospital quicker, it is a tool to be used by the physio teams to help these patients recover from their injury or illness, so that maybe they don't have to wait for intermediate care. Maybe they don't have to wait for that high-level hospital bed at home, because actually they've recovered back to their baseline level quicker, so they can get up out the chair. The S-Press is a tool that is missing from the toolkit that the physios currently have.
All this is even more remarkable when we factor in your diagnosis, Jen. You have a Parkinson's diagnosis. When did you get that?
So I was diagnosed with young-onset Parkinson's at the age of 47, 4 years ago.
Gosh.
As a physio working in older people's rehab, obviously it's a little bit ironic. And I have treated an awful lot of patients with Parkinson's, and my knowledge of the progress and the impact is obviously, I have a lot of knowledge about it, which is not necessarily a good thing when you're diagnosed with a condition.
No.
So, but I'm also a very proactive person. So the condition causes tremor, obviously. Not necessarily for everybody. It's one of these weird things. I am tremor dominant. So tremor is my main problem. And I have dystonia in my feet, which means that my toes kind of curl up. It can affect my balance if I'm not careful. It's been doing the things like this. So whenever I get kind of nervous or kind of even excited or kind of, so I'm having a good time or a stressful time, my tremor gets worse. Like anybody has this kind of internal reaction, but when you've got Parkinson's, it amplifies it massively.
Yes.
And also kind of my facial expressions have changed. My voice has got quieter. My gait has got slower. Medication is amazing, but it has been around for the last 50 years and hasn't really changed very much. They've added in new bits and pieces. And you just have a positive mental attitude, because that is a huge thing to do with it. So you can do so much to help yourself. I mean, this is another podcast entirely, and in the how you can help yourself when you have Parkinson's. But it is something that changes your life dramatically, but you have to think about it in the fact that you haven't lost things and actually you've gained some stuff. I am fitter than I have been in decades. My diet is better than it has been. I don't really drink anymore. Try and drink more water. So I exercise every day now, which is challenging in itself. And I know that a lot of older patients with Parkinson's find it very difficult to do that level of activity that we have to do. But it's so crucial. And that's where all the evidence is as well for like longevity and slowing down the progression. It's all around the high intensity, the working at 80% of your maximum. And also kind of adding in balance work, the coordination and everything.
So are you doing high intensity in terms of high intensity cardio and also strength training?
The high intensity training is kind of the treadmill, the bike, the boxing, all that kind of thing, where you really get your heart rate going and you really get your kind of your breath work going. Strength training, I've got my squat rack and I've got my dumbbells and I've got my balance board and I've got my activity, like my ladder and everything. So I've got my little gym here, my little boxing thing.
Excellent.
So variety is key. You don't just stick with one thing. So ping pong is really good because that's really good for your coordination and dexterity. And you've got things like tennis, pickleball, paddle, all of those new things that are coming through. But yeah, the strength training is crucial, particularly for core and for the legs, to kind of make sure that we reduce our risk of falling, and that it helps with coordination and balance.
It sounds like you're doing absolutely everything you possibly can to slow those symptoms, and I wish you the very, very best with that.
Thank you.
Just a remarkable person, a remarkable achievement with everything so far. And on top of that, a very difficult diagnosis, and you have clearly have that determination to just keep going regardless, which is the thing that puts you in such good stead going forward.
You do need to have a lot of tenacity, a lot of passion, and a lot of drive for anybody doing anything with innovation. You already have to have that. Add in a chronic illness or any kind of family stresses or any kind of life stresses, and it just makes things just all that much harder. But it doesn't kind of take away the baseline level of tenacity and passion and belief that I have in what the S-Press can achieve, and just the number of people that it's helped already. I mean, some stories are just phenomenal that have come through. Just really, so even if it doesn't go anywhere from this point, I know that I've already helped hundreds of people with having it kind of at this level. So fingers crossed it will get out there. And at the very least right now, we're spreading awareness of this issue of muscle loss in hospital and helping people to start thinking about how they can counter that. Yeah, it's very important. So, and you are doing such an amazing job with this podcast. I mean, with your parents and with everything that you're doing as well. It's just shining this massive light on it. And that is so key. Thank you, Jen. It's just been a delight. I've loved talking to you. It's been amazing. Thank you. Such an opportunity. It's all very exciting. So thank you. Thanks so much to Jen for sharing her inspiring story with us. And a reminder that you'll find links to further information in the description below, where you'll also be able to sign up to my free newsletter so you can get my episodes and articles delivered straight to your inbox so you won't miss a thing. And if you'd like to see behind the scenes content and vlogs from me, you'll also find a link below to join the channel as a member. But for now, as always, thank you for being here today.